Hello guys, and welcome back to On The Shelf. Now I know I've been gone for a good 2, maybe nearly 3 months. There's been a lot going on. I don't really want to go into it right now, but thankfully I am back. I'm back to making regular, semi-regular content, I hope. So yeah, thanks for sticking with me. And obviously if this is your first time watching one of these videos, then thanks for joining us. So I've actually tried to record this video about 3 times, and for whatever reason the audio kind of was lost. At one point I deleted some of the files. Don't ask me how it happened, but every time I sort of just felt like, why, God? Why are you doing this to us? Thankfully, I've taken my time with this one. I've checked that everything's working correctly, and hopefully this turns out okay. So you might remember a couple of months ago I put out a manga wrap-up video, and I enjoyed it so much that I'm going to do another one. So as I previously did with the last video, I'm going to talk about the manga that I've read, the anime that I've watched, and the video games that I've played over the last month, but in this case the last 2 months. But for this video I'm actually also going to throw in a movie recommendation for you guys. So if you enjoy the video, be sure to hit that like button, and of course if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. So here we go. So first up, for the manga that I read over the last couple of months, I was feeling a little bit down, so stupidly enough I picked up some Junji Ito. So the first book that I read was No Longer Human by Junji Ito, and if any of you have read this, you'll know that it's a really dark and harrowing tale. I don't understand what kind of possessed me to pick this up, maybe just a really nice sleek cover, but I sort of regretted it at the time, and now looking back I'm actually really glad that I did read it. It essentially tells the tale of a young man up until adulthood and all the terrible things that happen to him in his life, and it's kind of like a commentary on human nature, the depravity of the human race at times, and the terrible things that can happen to us, and the knock-on effect that can have on our outlook on life. And the main character goes through some terrible things. He gets addicted to drugs, every relationship he has seems to fall apart, and he's also responsible for the deaths of a lot of people, to the point where I felt like I was kind of watching a soap opera almost. But for the most part it's a really great story. When I finished it, I went and did a little bit of background research, and the author of the original novel, Osamu Dezai, actually committed suicide shortly after the final chapter released, so that added an extra layer of kind of haunting beauty to the story. That for the most part I would say I would highly recommend it, but if you're kind of not in the right mental state, then steer clear of this 100%. The art style though, by Ito, is perfect as per usual. He has a really eerie and fantastic sense of the horror genre, and it pairs really well with this story, even though there's not essentially any kind of monsters involved in the story. He uses a lot of symbolism to kind of indicate the downfall of the character and the ghosts that haunt him throughout his life. Following on from that, I was a bit of a glutton for punishment, and I went out and picked up Frankenstein by Junji Ito. Now this is another really nice hardcover from Viz Media. I'm on a kind of warpath to collect all of these because I really like it, but it tells the story, the famous story by Mary Shelley about Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster, but this also has a collection of short stories in it as well, and this is kind of more of a traditional Junji Ito collection, I would say, that focuses on just, creepy things and horrible monsters. So I'm really looking forward to diving into this, but I'm partly debating waiting and saving it all up and doing some kind of cool October themed reading event, so we'll see how we get on. Okay, I next picked up these wonderful 2 hard copies of Dementia 21. Well, I say hardback, they're kind of like softback, but with a really nice sort of slightly sturdier cover. These are probably my favourite covers of all of 2020 so far. These are by Fantagraphics Books, and they're absolutely beautiful releases, and I have to say, it's a fantastic story, and it's very similar to Ito in a way, but the difference being that although they are kind of short stories, they all follow the same character. So it's about a young girl who works as a care worker. She looks after elderly people or sickly people, and someone that she works with doesn't particularly like her, so she tries to sabotage her by sending her on particularly difficult jobs. And each kind of short story to me felt like a bit of a take on how we perceive our elderly, just general social commentaries about aging and illness and things like that. It's really thought-provoking, but just really weird. Like, some of them made me kind of really have to like double take and maybe reread a few pages again just to see what happened. A few notable favourite stories of mine were some of the early ones where she goes to look after an elderly woman, and every carer that's looked after this woman seems to mysteriously die. And it turns out that the woman is quite a bitter old woman, and she's been kind of setting up traps to try and kill the care workers. So that was a little bit more on the horror side. But then there was another one where people who are older or sick have been kind of stacked in these like tower blocks. So it's kind of, I guess it's a commentary on the fact that there's so many elderly people that people sometimes feel like they just want to tuck them away and forget about them. And these people have all been stacked in these towers, living on top of one another. And the woman has been tasked to climb up several sort of staircases to look after one of the sickly people. And they have their own kind of little society, their own little elected mayor almost, and things like that. And I just thought that was really funny. And that's the thing with this series, it's quite comedic, but also on the dark side as well. So if that piques your interest, then definitely check it out. I would definitely recommend it for the covers alone. But yeah, I'm going to be looking into more Keigo in the future. Okay, next we have a mini sort of haul that I got over the last couple of months. So the first was I bought volume 21 of Black Clover. Don't think this needs much introduction other than to say I really love this series. It's one of my favourites in Shonen Jump, and it's really hitting its stride. I really love this arc so far. It was kind of like volume 15 that left me like jaw dropped, and since then I've been totally addicted. So yeah, that's Black Clover. Okay, next to the recommendation of Zach from OnTheShelf, I picked up volumes 1 to 4 of Jujutsu Kaisen. I think a lot of people on YouTube have talked about this already, but he seems to think that this is kind of like the new best Shonen Jump series, and I'm not really up to date with all the current Shonen Jump stuff, but this is pretty good. I'd say if you're a fan of kind of exorcism series, you'll really like this. It's got a kind of like a dark vibe to it. But Zach, I remember Zach telling me that it was like the new Bleach of Shonen Jump, and you know how much I love Bleach. I wouldn't go that far. I'd say a couple of the first 2 volumes are a little bit slow. It's kind of like it doesn't really know where it wants to go. It doesn't have its footing, and there's a few things that it just glosses over that left me a little bit like, what? Like I thought we were talking about that, and now we're suddenly in a different place with loads of different people, and it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. But by volume 3, I was pretty addicted, and I definitely want to see where it goes. So maybe it's one that will kind of really peak and get a lot better, which, you know, I've been told it does, so fingers crossed. But something tells me maybe it'll fall a little bit flat. I'm not really sure. Okay, next was an easy buy for me. I got volumes 9, 10, and 11 of The Promised Neverland. Yes, I'm really behind with this series. Reason being that now it's finished, I'm kind of saving up all the volumes to do one big binge read. I really like to do that because I think if you know by volume 3 that you really love a series, that I always kind of just want to binge all of it, and I don't want to get to the point where I'm up to date with the physicals and I have no more to read. So yeah, really love this. This is probably another one of the better things in Shonen Jump, or was in Shonen Jump, because it's kind of just really different and a little bit more strategic than just pure action based. I have avoided spoilers completely on how it ends, so no one tell me anything, and if you do, you know, I will hate you forever. So I probably shouldn't have said that because people are going to comment now, aren't they? But yeah, please don't spoil things for people. But yeah, really looking forward to reading some more Promised Neverland. Okay, next were a couple of easy buys again. I got volume 19 of One Punch Man. This is like a staple for me now. It's something that I go to as a really comfortable favorite. I love the comedy, I love the side characters. I don't really have anything else to say other than read One Punch Man, it's fantastic. And then I also got a volume 11 of Platinum End. This deserves so much more love than it gets, because I think people are keen to compare it to Death Note and Bakuman, rightly so, and it does have very kind of similar tropes to Death Note, but you should just look at it objectively on its own and give it a fair chance. It's a lot of fun. There's really good characters in it, there's really good story in it, and it's definitely worthwhile checking out, at least a few volumes anyway. Also, last couple of months I picked up volumes 7, 8 and 9 of Ajin Demi-Human, a wonderful seinen series. Really love this. If you're a fan of Tokyo Ghoul and horror action, then definitely check this out, it's well worth it. I love these releases from Vertical, the spines are beautiful, the quality is fantastic. They're just a little bit on the small side and they're really kind of expensive as well, so that's probably what's halted me from buying much more of it. Okay, me and my girlfriend also recently celebrated our 5-year anniversary, and although we didn't buy each other kind of lavish gifts, she got me some manga, which is always welcome in this household. So she bought me Jacko the Galactic Patrolman, which is a one-shot single volume series, if you like, by Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball. If you remember from the last video, I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan, and I really want to read his other shorter works as well. There's a few others, I believe, one called Sandland, one called Clover. They're a little bit harder to kind of find because they've been in print for so long that I think they're either out of print or they're just, you know, printing less. But this one is one of the relatively newer ones. It follows a patrolman that travels through the galaxy and having crazy hijinks and adventures. I also believe there's some cameos with Dragon Ball characters in this, so yeah, really looking forward to checking that out. Next, she also got me volume 5 of The Girl from the Other Side. I've been singing the praises of this series for quite a while now, and if you take one thing away from this video, I definitely want you to go and check this out. It's been described as kind of like a Tim Burton-esque fairy tale. It's all about this huge wall that separates the inside and the outside. The insiders are very much like us, like normal people. They live in a quiet little town, and on the outside, behind the wall, there are these cursed beings. Now, people believe that if you come into contact with these cursed beings and you touch them or they touch you, that you yourself become cursed. But the story centers around a young girl named Shiva who's been abandoned on the outside. We don't really know why, we don't really know what's wrong with her or anything like that. There's quite an air of mystery surrounding her. But her guardian is actually a cursed being that she refers to as Teacher. Now, what I really love about this series is just the suspense that it creates. It's got an air of mystery to everything. I kind of never really knew who to trust. I didn't know if Teacher was kind of a good guy or a bad guy. You never really know if anything bad's gonna happen. And yeah, it's just super creepy, but really cute as well. It's I've compared it in the past to kind of, if you've ever read or watched the film Room, it's all told from the perspective of the child, and I feel like this has like an element of childhood naivety to it as well. I think, you know, because Shiva's such a cute kind of character, she doesn't really know who's bad, she trusts everyone. You feel really bad for her and you feel on edge because you don't want anything to happen to her, and I think that's the vibe that the author's going for, and it really works here. Also, the art style is super different. I know it's put off a few people, but I really love it. It's a lot of dark tones, but the shading and the detail is fantastic. So please go and check out The Girl from the Other Side and let me know down below what you think. Okay, first up in the last 3 reads for these couple of months was Berserk Volume 40. So I'd saved up about 7 or 8 volumes of Berserk because, as we all know, the chapters are coming out very slowly, but it's well worth the wait, I would say. I think the art and the story is phenomenal, so we can't really fault Miura for that. If it takes longer to come out but the quality remains high, then we should all be happy. I can honestly say, I mean, I don't really need to recommend Berserk at this point, but all I want to say is that this volume ended on a huge kind of cliffhanger, and it's really made me quite sad. So I think, you know, for all of you that are up to date with Berserk, just know that I'm right there with you suffering. Okay, and I put out a little bit of a poll on Twitter for some of the things that I was debating picking up, and you guys all voted for the Hellsing Ultimate Edition, but I didn't buy that because it's still pretty expensive. So I actually went for a couple of Taiyo Matsumoto books, the first being Ping Pong Volume 1. Really fantastic release from Viz. It's kind of similar to the Goodnight Pon Pon quality, but it's not really hardback, it's like softback. But the actual cover is a little bit sturdier than those, I would say, and it's got this really fantastic all over manga print that I really like. It kind of reminds me of when I was in school and I would like put covers over my exercise books, a bit like wallpapering them. This is the sort of thing that I would do, but maybe not to this quality. If you remember from last year, my #1 read was Cats of the Louvre, so I'll leave a link in this video somewhere for you to go and check out my review of that. Now, I haven't read Ping Pong yet because I'm waiting for volume 2 to come out and I'm going to read the whole thing, and then maybe I will do a kind of the genius of Taiyo Matsumoto video if you guys are interested in that, a little bit of a kind of spotlight on some of his works and why I think they're so good. But the second one that I picked up, I did actually read. So that is of course Zach's favourite manga, Tekon Concrete. This is another fantastic release from Viz, really heavy, really nice slipcover, and it was pretty cheap as well. I think I paid like £10 or £11 for this. Now, all I really want to say, because as I said I'm going to go into it in a later video, is that that is a really beautiful story. I read it in a couple of sit-ins, I couldn't really put it down, and it's all about two orphan boys who are either siblings or friends, and they live in this city that's full of corruption, you know, like dirty cops and yakuza and crime. And that causes them to lead a life of crime as well. So they fend for themselves, they steal to survive, they sleep in an old kind of run-down car, and it's really cute. It's kind of a story about family, about brotherhood, and about society and how it kind of impacts these children's lives, and you know how one of them essentially goes on to kind of lead a semi-normal life, and the other one, without any guidance, falls into depravity. Taiyo Matsumoto himself is actually an orphan, so that again added an extra layer to the story, and yeah, really fantastic read, highly recommend it, and look out for a video in the future discussing that further. Okay, finally for the manga pickups this month, I got something really nerdy. So I actually bought these. They're called Manga Bags. Before you really judge me, I just want to know, do any of you guys sort of put your books in slip covers for any reason? And if so, why? I'd be really interested to know. I didn't actually put all my books in covers, like I've not gone that far, but I have a couple of volumes that are really precious to me and really expensive, and I was sitting around and thinking if anything happened to those, you know, how devastated I would be, so I thought it best to do what I can to protect them. Not really sure if they work, but I'd be really interested to know your guys' thoughts as well. Okay, next quickly, I'm going to talk about some video games that I've checked out over the last 2 months. The first, you might remember, I was really excited for, and that is The Last of Us Part 2. Got this really nice steelbook version. I don't know whether this is a UK exclusive or a Europe exclusive, I don't know, but it was from Amazon, it's really cool. I'm not going to do a huge review on it because the internet is littered with them, but all I'll say is I actually really liked it. I think the direction they went with was really fun. All of the gameplay mechanics were improved phenomenally, and I didn't think it possible. And again, Naughty Dog just did a phenomenal job with this game, and I've been singing its praises for a long time. Following that, I went out and picked up Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, I don't think that this is the best Final Fantasy I've ever played. I'd say my favourite is either between 10 or maybe even 15. I really love 15. That's not because I don't dislike the story. I enjoyed the original Final Fantasy VII, and this one is greatly improved in terms of, you know, graphics and gameplay and all of that. It's really got the look of a modern day Final Fantasy, which I really love. And of course the story is just fantastic. It's all about these environmental kind of terrorists that are trying to stop a huge corporation from draining the earth of all of its natural resources by any means necessary. It's got fantastic characters, really great action in it. But what I didn't really enjoy so far with this game is the fetch quests. There's a lot of like slow moments, a lot of running about and collecting things for people, and a little bit of grinding in there as well, which I think just ruins the momentum of a great RPG. But when the story notes hit, they hit really well, and they're really, you know, impactful. So definitely recommend it if you've not played a lot of RPGs, but if you're a huge RPG fan, this might not necessarily do it for you. Okay, and finally, I have my anime that I watched for the last couple of months, and I'm going to do a quick movie recommendation as well. Last month I checked out Baccano, so because I finished Baccano, I obviously went out and I watched Durarara. Fantastic name for a series, gotta say. And again, it's by the same creator or author of the Baccano novel. Great story with a huge host of interesting characters, all about a young boy who moves to a new town and all the different interesting people that he meets. There's kind of underground gangsters, a weird kind of scientific conspiracy, kidnappings, and there's also a headless horseman. So the reason that this series is called Durarara is because it's supposed to be the sound of a motorbike. And that's because the Headless Horseman in this story has traded in their horse for a motorbike. So in typical anime fashion, this is just off the walls, crazy, really fantastic, and a well worth watch if you haven't seen it already. Okay, and finally wrapping up this, let's just call it an otaku wrap up then, I suppose, because it's not really just manga. But the wrap up for these last couple of months, there's a film that I really want to recommend to you guys if you're interested, and it's called Honey Boy. The reason I'm recommending this is because it's something that I haven't heard anyone talk about. It fell completely off the radar, and at least in this country, I haven't seen it in any of the cinemas or, you know, anywhere really strongly advertised. Now, it was written by Shia LaBeouf, who we all know for the "just do it" kind of meme. Just do it! But he, to me, is a criminally underrated actor, and if you watch this film, you'll really understand. It was written by him in rehab as a form of therapy for himself to come to terms with his childhood, and it's all about his father, who was a professionally trained clown and also a drug dealer and a sex offender, and how he raised Shia from a young age as a childhood star. Now, what was really great about this film is that Shia actually plays his father in the film. He said in interviews that he went to his father and he told him that he was creating this movie and that someone that his father really idolized would be playing him. Now, once his father signed the documents to say, yes, that's okay, Shia actually turned around and said, I'm playing you. And I just thought that it was the most interesting concept that I've ever seen, and a really great kind of cathartic experience, because even though I've not been through any trauma in my childhood, it was just really powerful to watch Shia's performance of his father, just knowing kind of the depth and the weight behind his performance. So yeah, I really like movies, if you didn't know already, so I'm just going to kind of sprinkle these in here and there as a nice little sort of extra bit to these videos. So if you enjoyed that, then please let me know, and if you watch the film, I really want to know your opinions on it. So that's it for this monthly wrap up. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please, you know, support the channel wherever you can and share this video with your friends, or, you know, hit the like button and drop a comment down below. I really appreciate all of your support, and I'm really sorry that it's took me so long to put out this video. I tend to put out videos wherever I can, and I just haven't been in the mental headspace to do that recently, so it didn't feel right to half-arse a video and just put it out, you know, sort of half-cooked. So I really appreciate all of you for everything you do, and as always, stay awesome, and I'll catch you next time.